an open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
Good day, everybody. It's the 31st of January 2015, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. in the Netherlands. What's up, everybody? How are you guys doing? If you want to join the radio, you can do so via Skype. Contact me at Solvinur, S-O-L-V-I-N-U-R, N as in Neo. Some people in the chat: Dan, Del, Hopper, JJ, Jules, Rode, Vince, Degreaser, and Cap. No announce this time. And they're having a talk about usury, money, currency. Currency is like a flow, you know, like a river flows. If money doesn't flow, it's, you know, that's not good. I made some comments about it myself in the chat. I have a rather extreme vision about this. I think the whole belief in money should be gone. You know, I don't understand as a philosopher why it is only humans on this whole damn planet that need money to survive. You know, that doesn't make any sense at all. All other animals live by self-sufficiency. We should do so as well. And, you know, money is used to control us, because those that are in power don't need it. They make us need it. It's a form of control, like language, like symbols. So, but there's a lot of people that think that, you know, gold and silver has value, right? For some reason. I don't understand that either. I also don't like it when there's ads in these so-called alternative media, right? Yeah, buy gold, right? Buy silver, give us your dollars. If they thought that the dollar was so worthless, do you think they would make ads offering you gold for your so-called worthless dollars? Think about it, right? Okay. So for today, I have ready, more or less, 2 PDFs, I think. Yeah, one is Final Trivium, which we still haven't come to an end of. And the other one is from previous week, where we were talking about the Prussian system, Prussian education system. But this Final Trivium, we should actually finish that. Learning transfer is the next heading. Morning, Jules. Transfer of learning is where the knowledge gained in one field or subject applies to another. Did we do this already or what? Because this PDF is supposed to open where we left off, but I don't know if it did it correctly. This is where we see beyond the subject, where we relate our previous understandings to each new situation. First you experience, there's capitalized experience, concrete events or understandings. Okay, how do you do that? How do you experience an understanding? Interesting. I thought you had those. You have an understanding. Whatever. You then process, that's why it's capitalized. This one is P is capitalized also. Experience is probably capitalized because it's supposed to relate to grammar, I guess. Then process is capitalized because it's supposed to relate to logic, right? Grammar, logic, rhetoric. You then process the information through observation and reflection. Then you generalize your understanding by forming abstract concepts. Generalize is here capitalized. And apply with capital A, that's where the rhetoric is. Apply all of this by testing the implications of your concepts in a new experience. It's a learning cycle appropriate for all occasions, dress or casual. To quote from Dorothy Sayers' essay, The Lost Tools of Learning, do you often come across people for whom all their lives a subject remains a subject, divided by watertight bulkheads from all other subjects, so that they experience very great difficulty in making an immediate mental connection between algebra and detective fiction, sewage disposal and the price of salmon, or, more generally, between such spheres of knowledge as philosophy and economics, or chemistry and art? That's funny, right? Philosophy and economics should come here. When at the beginning I just said, as a philosopher, it just doesn't make any sense to me that we need money, right? That we are the only living species on this earth that supposedly needs these green papers to be able to survive. It's insane, people. It really is. That also came back in what I played for you guys with John Taylor Gatto. Remember what he said? The people working 5 days a week are insane. Dr. John Nagy, in his book Building Athens, describes learning transfer a couple of times. On page 134, by examining, understanding, and following Euclid's methods, Masons train their minds to do this, geometrical logical proofs, in other areas unrelated to geometry. And on page 198, again, we already did this weeks ago. Let's see where we were. Here. To help establish stasis, employ this 4-part assessment. Okay, what is stasis? Copy that. Put that into Google. Stasis. What the heck is that? Stasis. From Greek, standing still, a state of stability in which all forces are equal and opposing. Therefore they cancel each other out. Well, that doesn't seem to be very useful. To help establish stasis, employ this 4-part assessment. 1. Question of fact. What exactly What is it exactly that I'm talking about? Is it a person, an idea, a problem? Does it really exist? What's the source of the problem? Are there facts to support the truth of this opinion? Remember last week when I tried to do a Google search on the rules of general grammar? Right? This reminds me a little bit of that. Now the question here, when it says, does it really exist? That would, and I'm making this up as I go, that would fit under the rules of general grammar. You know, if it doesn't exist, then it's not valid grammar. General grammar, right? Not special grammar. If your data, your information, your building blocks are incorrect, then you would have broken some rule of general grammar. How do you get your grammar, right? Are your sources reliable? There's another thing that would go in there. Are your sources reliable? Two, question of definition. That would also go in the general grammar rules. What is the best way to define this idea, object, or action? What are the different parts? Can it be grouped with similar ideas, objects, or actions? Then three, questions of quality. Is it good or bad? Is it right or wrong? Is it frivolous or important? Yeah, the whole thing about is it good or bad kind of bugs me. You know, there are so many societies where death is smiled upon. People actually have feasts when a person dies. And they cry when babies are born. Right? And we have the totally opposite. We're happy when baby is born and we grieve when people die. Right? So your definition of what is good or bad depends a lot on in what kind of culture you've grown up. Four, questions of procedure, jurisdiction. Is this the right venue to discuss this topic? What actions do I want my reader, listener to take? Right. Write outlines is the next heading. One of the best ways to organize your thoughts for writing or speaking is to make outlines. I do this for everything I write, including this essay. Usually I start with all of the notes, ideas, scribbles and sketches I've made. Didn't we already do this, guys? I'm afraid we did, guys. Yes, because there's that symbol again, which I talked to you about last time. This is from Walter Lippmann. There can be no liberty for a community which lacks the means by which to detect lies. Alright, so where were we? This is about politics. I'm going to gently skip that. Part 3, emotional and physical. In this section I introduced the idea that the intellectual arts should not be learned at the expense of the emotional character and physical well-being. I'm just thinking that we also did this. Alright, let's just close this PDF and continue with where we left off last week, because this seems to be a bit more important. Implementation of the Prussian system. John Taylor Gatto also talked about this. Implementation of the Prussian system was to become the goal of Edward Everett, America's first PhD as governor of Massachusetts. Right? if I remember correct, Massachusetts was the first state in which the Prussian education system was implemented. Everett had to deal with the problems of the influx of poor Irish Catholics into his state. In 1852, with the support of Horace Mann, another strong advocate of the Prussian model, Everett made the decision to adopt the Prussian system of education in Massachusetts. All right? So what is being said here? It says here, Everett had to deal with the problem of the influx of poor Irish Catholics. So how is that his problem? Is he supposed to make all these people rich or what? Because that's not what he's doing with his Prussian education system. His problem was that he needed to control them. That was his problem. Unfortunately for the children and the poor Irish Catholics of Massachusetts and elsewhere, the system produced a willing, cheap labor force with minimal reading and number skills. Yeah, that's how you control them easily, right? The Everetts of the world understood that people who could read and understand are dangerous because they are intellectually equipped to find out things for themselves, thus becoming a threat to already established power elites. See? It's about control. Shortly after Everett and Mann collaborated to adopt the Prussian system, the governor of New York set up the same method in 12 different New York schools on a trial basis. Incredibly, within 2 weeks he declared the system a total success and took control of the entire education system in the state of New York. In a blitzkrieg action with no debate, public hearing or citizen involvement, government-forced schooling was on its way in America. The result of the Prussian system. The history of American education since the acceptance of the Prussian system is checkered with failure and elitism. From the time of John Dewey, who felt people should be defined by groups and associations, and who believed that people who were well-read were dangerous, to our own era, US education has suffered. We have, in this day and age, the disheartening statistic showing 33% of our nation's college graduates cannot read or calculate well enough to perform the jobs they seek. Wow. Working against the concepts and principles the founding fathers provided in the Constitution, the Prussian system had produced a gradual but statistically provable decline in literacy and intellectual capability of typical Americans. We can track the 5 different stages that American education has gone through. 1750 to 1852, the idea of government-controlled schools was conceived. 1852 to 1900, it was politically debated in state legislatures. 1900 to 1920, we had government-controlled industrialized factory-modeled schooling. 1920 to 1960, schools changed from being academically focused to becoming socialized. And 1960 to the present, schools became psychological experimental labs. Wow. In the year 1941, the Defense Department, wasn't it called the Department of War by then? Still, I mean, they changed that, right? It was called the Department of War. Now they call it Defense Department. Right? Talk about newspeak. It's not defense, it's offense. In the year 1941, the Defense Department was preparing for World War II. In testing 18 million men between 1941 and 1944, the Defense Department found 96% of those tested were literate. During the same period, among African Americans who were tested, the majority of whom had only 3 years of schooling, 80% were found to be literate. By literate we mean that Americans, both white and black, could read with understanding. During the Korean War, the Department of Defense tested 3 million men for service and only 19% were found to be literate. 19? Wow. In less than 10 years, there had been a 500% rise in illiteracy. Perplexed, the Defense Department investigated and found that the same test had been used during the two wars, and the only difference was that those men and women tested during the Korean War had more schooling at a significantly higher cost. 20 years later, around 1970, the same test was used in a time of a new war. Among the Vietnamese draftees and enlistees who were tested for literacy, only 27% were found to be capable of reading with understanding the material which they needed in order to serve in the armed forces. Again, the major difference between American soldiers in the 1940s and the 1970s was more schooling for the latter group at a higher cost to the taxpayer. Consider that the billions of taxpayer dollars were spent over the period from the 1940s to the present increased by some 350%, with totally unacceptable results despite all the increased spending. Yeah, that's his personal view, right? It says totally unacceptable. Well, not if you're an elitist. Then it had the goal. It had reached the goal you were reaching for. You were aiming for, right? In 1996, statistics prepared by the National Association of Education for Progress showed that some 44% of African Americans, what the heck is that? What the heck is an African American? Why not call them black people, right? Is that not allowed? You're not allowed to say black people? Doesn't make sense. We in Holland, we don't call Turkish people Turk Dutchies or something like that. We call them Turks. That's what they are. You're either an African or you're an American. You can't be both. These are continents, right? Not one half of you was born in Africa and the other half of you was born in America, right? You belong to a certain race, not some mix of the two. The same set of statistics shows that illiteracy among whites had quadrupled. And when I say you belong to a certain race, I'm talking from an elitist standpoint of view, right? Like Darwin socialism, social Darwinism. Yeah, Darwin had, like we were told by John Taylor Gatto, had figured out that there were like 70 plus races out there, among which the Irish ranked as the lowest, and the blue-eyed blonde hair ranked as the highest, right? Where were we? The same set of statistics show that illiteracy among whites had quadrupled. Incredibly, educating Americans continues to cost massive amount of taxpayer dollars to achieve unacceptable and devastatingly poor results. Yeah, that's the whole idea. To get devastatingly poor results. Conclusion. The costs to America cannot be measured in just dollars and cents. No. While the economic cost is monumental, as indicated by the 30 billion annual Department of Education budget and billions more spent by local communities, the lack of results for the dollars we spend is catastrophic. We are paying billions to maintain a system which is ineffective and dangerous because it is not teaching people the critical intellectual skills which are crucial to making economic and political decisions for themselves. Currently, most of this spending is not going to teachers' increased pay or towards efforts at better teaching standards. In the enormous, centralized corporate enterprise which has grown to be public schooling, the great majority of tax-raised income is purchasing new buildings, campus-site real estate, and ancillary physical facilities, buses, metal detectors, computers, and the like, in which funds can potentially be diverted and spread among those involved in the procurement process: education bureaucrats, local and state politicians, and contractors. Other perceived needs of socializing children, like band uniforms, field trips, and other extracurricular activities, which finances have been diverted to the interest just named, school children are transformed into peddlers of sundry products to raise money for these resources under the guise of developing personal independence and responsibility. Yeah, that is ironic, right? What's the answer? While the privileged class may choose to send its children to private schools, most Americans have only one option: public education. Public schools are the country's largest employer and the largest mediator in contracts. Is that so? Public schools, the largest employer? Unfortunately, the public education establishment is so powerful it can outlast public outrage. Consequently, Americans face a dismal education future unless we insist on parental choice. Until then, there is little likelihood that a Prussian-inspired educational system will change and deliver the desired results: a literate, intellectually capable citizenry. Now it goes on here about an American hero, then Abraham Lincoln. Now unfortunately I don't know enough about this guy to be able to determine if he really was a hero or not. You know, it's like John F. Kennedy. He's seen by many as a hero. Well, he's a fracking traitor. I know that for a fact. I learned that from Bill Cooper, right? He's a hero. So I don't know what to say about this Abraham Lincoln, because I just don't know enough about it. Anyway, he was very outspoken against the Prussian idea that ordinary people should not be taught the same way as privileged class. He said such a concept was un-American, that this country was built by its common people. I thought it was, yeah. I'm still a bit confused here. You know, America, it was a British colony, right? Like Australia and India. And for instance, in India, they say, well, India's free now, it's no longer under British rule. Well, really? Did you check the laws that they still imply over there? They're all British. And the same, I'm wondering, is it the same in the United States? Right? Is it still the Anglo-American establishment? Right? God created all men as equals and they deserve to be educated in the same manner, rich and poor alike, really. So Lincoln was convinced that God had created all men as equals. Really? But first of all, that's just not true. Not all men are equal. Luckily not. You know, that goes directly against the idea that all men are unique. How can you be equal and unique at the same time? That's a contradiction, you see. Alright, let me roll a ciggy here. The key to effective education, the education which was provided to the upper 0.5% in Prussia, or learning how to learn and think systematically, is the application of the first 3 of the 7 liberal arts and sciences, known as the trivium, in each of its 3 manifestations. A. The subject of the trivium, this 3-fold method, reflects the natural human psychology for assimilating knowledge. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's another way of saying the trivium reflects how your mind works. 1. Rules of general grammar to concisely organize a body of knowledge. Yeah, and what are those rules of general grammar? It doesn't go further into that at this point. Rules of formal logic, with which to produce understanding by finding non-contradictory relationships within that body of knowledge and to objective reality. Yeah, in relation to objective reality, in which there are no contradictions, right? In nature, there are no contradictions. It's only in people's minds that contradictions arise. Three, rules of classical rhetoric to produce wisdom with which to cogently express and use the understanding garnered from the body of knowledge. Then B, the trivium as an age-appropriate division for training and educating in childhood and adolescence. This takes account of the changing capacities in the instrument of study, the mind, as it matures into adulthood. 1. The grammar level, ages 4 to 9. Training in self-discipline. Memory work and primary informal presentation of language-based subjects. Yeah, how do you have a non-language-based subject? I don't get that. As in spelling, phonetic reading, foreign languages, and absorbing factual data. Introduction to elementary numbers and arithmetic. addition, subtraction, and multiplication tables. Yeah. Instead of memorizing multiplication tables, they should teach Vedic math, where multiplication is treated very differently and much, much easier. 2. Logic level, ages 10 to 14. Education and self-instruction in analytical subjects, formal logic, advanced mathematics, literary, historical, and scientific analysis, and primary composition. 1 and 2 comprise the art of learning. Then 3, rhetoric level, ages 15 to 17. Self-expression of what was and is being learned and understood by use of advanced, original, literary and/or mathematical composition. The student is now prepared for a lifetime of learning by using the trivium method as a pattern of how to think properly. With the addition of number 3, the art of thinking is now in place. The trivium has been used not only for learning but also for teaching. The Dame School, which provided primary education to children aged 6 to 17 in one room with one instructor, was a complete and efficient system for the dissemination and debate of knowledge. However, the single instructor was not unaided in her teaching chores. Hold on, guys. I have to type that in. Hopper, if you're going to make like claims like that, you should like give a credible source. Also, hydrogen is one of the most rare elements on Earth. Not on the sun, but on Earth. It's really, really rare. Let's see. All right. Sorry about that. I had to comment on the chat there. Now you guys know that I keep an eye on the chat as well, right? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense, Hopper. That would mean that the pressure at the bottom of the ocean is about as high as it gets in the sun. You kidding me, right? The ingenious use of the upperclassmen to help instruct the lowerclassmen was part of this system. Logic level students helped train grammar level students. Those at the rhetoric level helped the logical level students. The best way to learn is to teach. Yeah, that's also what John Taylor Gatto mentioned, right? Motivation to learn was also addressed in this schooling. Younger students respond more favorably to being taught and emulating slightly older contemporaries, their peers, rather than being unceasingly instructed by an adult. As can be imagined, this dance of learning and teaching could serve a person throughout his life. The trivium, a means for guidance in how to think, is a classification tool of those modes which gather knowledge of what to think. The literary or mythopoeic, that's mythological and poetic, mode uses analogical methods to elucidate phenomena. 2. The philosophical mode uses the logical methods to explain phenomena. 3. The scientific mode uses the scientific method to gain knowledge, understanding, and the use of phenomena through experimental demonstration. That's empiricism. Ancient India, and then there's the claim here that's 4th and 3rd millennia BC. If you ask Indians themselves, Indiers, I guess, they would say it's much, much older than that. Appears to be the birthplace of the institution detailed above as the Prussian model. Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah, well, they had their people under control also, you know. All these kingdoms, all these kings, they were very well educated in how to control lots and lots of people. I mean, these kings, they were of the Kshatriya class, which is one step under the Brahmin class. And the Brahmins, they knew everything there was to know about human nature. They give a little bit of that away in the Bhagavad Gita, for instance. Right? So in India, they had a very tight control of people through their caste system and the belief that they spread. Ancient India appears to be the birthplace of the institution detailed above as the Prussian model. Even the ratios of population specialization were derived from the Indian system of social castes. Yeah. Not only that, Darwinism, social Darwinism came from India. Why do you think that it was the Brahmins who decided who gets to marry who? We're talking about eugenics here. The Indian Brahmanic systems specified 4 hereditary castes in descending order of cleanliness. Yeah, actually there's 5. The 5th class are the untouchables. Yeah, we're probably going to get a list of the 4 classes, so I won't mention them now. In fact, the entire system was based on varying levels of education. Yes. 1. The Brahmin caste. And those are the priests. Those born into the holy, priestly, judicial, teacher caste were the ultimate authority figures in society and directed its courses of action. This caste was taught the full manner of systematic learning and thinking, the precepts of the integrated trivium. Because of this training, they were the only people in their culture who had a view of the society's big picture. About 0% of the general population belonged to this caste. Then 2, the Kshatriya caste. Those born in the heroic king-warrior caste were the figures of power and were the force behind the dictates of the informed authoritarian caste. Right? The warriors caste was always considered potentially dangerous to the authoritarian caste because the warrior's primary focus was physical coercion. Yes. There is also this myth that I told you about a couple of times, but it bears repeating, about Rama. Remember Rama is a brother of Krishna, and I'm not sure if it's this incarnation with Krishna that this happened, but there's this myth about him having a very long life and destroying 10 generations long every kshatriya he could get his hands on. the myth also continues that the Kshatriyas fled India and ended up in Egypt. This coercion could easily be turned on the caste of authority to assume total control of society, if it, the warrior caste, so choose. For this reason, the Brahmin caste taught the warriors only the means to partially think, as in the case of the 19th century Prussian system. That is, perhaps one or two of the precepts of the trivium were emphasized, or all three were presented but out of sequence, or as subjects unto themselves and without the integrating aspects of valid, systematic thought being stressed. About 5 or 6% of the general population were members of the warrior caste. The royal, executive, police and military branches of political society. Then 3, the Vaishya caste, those born into the commercial, agriculture, merchant, artisan caste were normally in charge of the material wealth derived from economic activity. They coordinated the business, the trade and the employment of productive society. The members of this caste were taught only the grammar of thought, the specialized material servile arts of their various vocations, in order that they be politically uncritical. Rote? I don't know what that is. Maybe a spelling wrong or something. I don't know. I never heard of that word. R-O-T-E. Functionaries in society. Approximately 4 to 5% of the general population belong to this caste. Are you sure about that? I mean, agriculture? A lot of people did that, right? Then 4, the Sudra caste. Yeah, and then there's one class beneath that called the untouchables. 4, the Shudra class, those born into menial caste, provided the servants and laborers to the other 3 castes. This caste was not given any formal instruction, the members not being twice born or initiated into their life situation in adolescence after their period of education. We signify this today by a ceremony called graduation, as were the 3 upper castes. About 87% or almost all of the rest of the general population belonged to this caste. The very small percentage of the population that were born into the lower spectrum of this 4th caste were labeled untouchables. There we go. And performed either the very unsavory task of society or were the common beggars. Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? It's the Brahmins who are walking door to door begging people for food. They're called sannyasins. Those are the beggars. And they supposedly go above all of these classes. They renounce the world, right? Interestingly, after coming to a comprehensive understanding of the hierarchical structure of the society, a number of this group of untouchables later became the international bands and traveling societies which are known as Romani people. They are most commonly known to us as gypsies. Yeah. I don't know about that. That should be checked if that is correct. These basic divisions in society have manifested in various cultures throughout the ages. Some more Western examples. It goes on like here. Some more Western examples, and then it starts about ancient Egypt. Is that Westly? Ancient Egypt developed priestly and warrior castes. Yeah. That goes with the legend I just told you about, right? To cope with the potential problems of a rebellious warrior caste, the priests selected their titular leader, the pharaoh, from among the warrior caste itself. Once selected, this leader was initiated into the mysteries of the knowledgeable priestly caste. The centerpiece mystery being the integrated trivium, most likely. The deeper mysteries were, of course, pharmacologically communicated. Huh. Like what? Mushrooms? European society in the Middle Ages was divided into oratories, bellators, and laborators. Yeah? So, like today, in did they then? Well, that would be sufficient evidence if they did the genetics on it. You got a link for that, Dan? But I was going to say that today here in Western society, we also have like made a copy of what went on in India thousands and thousands of years ago. We call it a class system, right? Instead of a caste system. We have a class system. Well, there's no difference really. The church was the dwelling of the oratores, something like that. These were the men who had been given the sequential instruction from grammar to logic and on into becoming accomplished rhetoricians and orators. European authority stemmed from skillfully applied rhetoric. Let's see. What's this? The Romani people, which we just mentioned, also referred to, depending on the subgroup, as Roma. Right. You think about Italy, right? Sinti, Calais, or Romani are an Indo-Aryan ethnic group. See? What did I tell you guys about Aryans? That they are brown people, remember? How many people think that Aryans are blue-eyed blondes? Who lived primarily in Europe. They originated in the region of northwestern India and left sometime between the 6th and 11th century, brought by Muslims to Europe as slaves, and settled in Europe, Turkey, and North Africa via Iran. Alright, so originated in the region of northwestern India. That's what they say. The Roman have been described by Diana Moore Applebaum, that's apple tree, as unique among peoples because they have never identified themselves with a territory. They have no tradition of an ancient and distant homeland from which their ancestors migrated. Well, that's a contradiction, right? We just claimed that they came from India. Let's see what happens if I click on this one. Koenig, Donald, Historical Dictionary for Gypsies. Alright, that doesn't help. What happens if I click on the 2? Koenig again, Donald, Historical Dictionary. So where's this genetic evidence that you mentioned, Dan? Stephanie Pabst, Origin of the Romani People, pinned down. LifeScience.com, retrieved 24 December 2014. Alright, let's see what's that. Origin of Romani People, pinned down. Europe's largest minority group, the Romani, migrated from northwest India 1,500 years ago. New genetic study finds, apparently. Says who? Right? Who did this genetic research? I want to know. The Romani, also known as the Roma, were originally dubbed gypsies in the 16th century because this widely dispersed group of people were first thought to have come from Egypt. Today, many consider gypsy to be a derogatory term. Since the advent of better and better genetic technology, researchers have analyzed the genetic history of much of Europe, finding, for example, the history of the Jewish diaspora written in DNA. But though there are 11 million Romani in Europe, their history has been neglected, said study researcher David Cornas of the Institute of Biology Evolutiva at University Pompei Fabri in Spain. All right, so now we have an authority figure we can check, right? David Cornas, because when it says it says here, since the advent of better and better genetic technology, researchers, so that's more than one, have analyzed the genetic history of much of Europe. All right, that's an appeal to authority. It doesn't mention which researchers. That's appeal to unnamed authority. You cannot accept it just like that. Now that they've given a name, this David Cornas, now you can check it. Now you can check who is this David Cornas, what education did he have, what expertise is he in, and so on and so on. Right? And then you have one source. Right? One source is not enough. You need 3 sources that have no link with each other, that mention the same, to be able to accept something as fact. Linguistic history, as well as a few limited genetic studies, have already suggested that Romani originally hailed from India. Alright, that's a clue. Linguistics. To confirm this idea and uncover more details of on the migration, Cornas, right, that's the David Cornas that we mentioned, and his colleagues used a technique that compares DNA segments from across the whole genome with that of our populations. They used DNA samples from 13 groups of Romani spread across Europe. Alright, so what's interesting about this as far as I'm concerned is like, okay, so if the Romani people came from India, where did the Dutch people come from? Or where did the American people come from? Or the Italian people? How did humans come on the earth in the first place? Right? That's more interesting to me, to be honest with you. Alright, enough about that. Click those away. Alright Dan, well done buddy. You got more genetics here from the Scientific American. Romani people, once known as gypsies or Roma, have been object of both curiosity and persecution for centuries. Yes. We're talking about language again. But a new study uses genome-wide sequencing to point to a single group's departure from northwestern India some 1,500 years ago, and has also revealed various subsequent population changes as the population spread throughout Europe. Alright, so now we have a Dutch guy who mentions it, apparently. Understanding the Romani genetic legacy is necessary to complete the genetic characterization of Europeans as a whole. with implications for various fields, from human evolution to health sciences, said Manfred Keizer of Erasmus University in Rotterdam. Alright, that's the Netherlands. And paper co-author in a prepared statement. Alright? So now you have two guys claiming this fact. Alright, that's going in the right direction. Yep. Interesting. Well done, Dan. Alright. It's 5 o'clock. Hold on, guys. Choop. Let me a cigarette. Gonna put some water on the kettle for coffee. Yeah. There we go. Wait until that boils. 2, continuing from the PDF here. 2, the bellicose men of society were the kings, princes, and various noblemen who executed aggressive actions on their own behalf, if in concurrence with the guidelines of the church. Yeah. Reminds you of the knights, right? At times acted as coercive auxiliaries of the church itself. And then 3, laboratores were composed of farmers, merchants, tradesmen, artisans, serfs, and freemen laborers, and servants, who lived under the authority of the church and at the pleasure of the various monarchies. Monarch. Mon is one, like moon. Arch means to rule, single rule, monarch. In this very readable work, titled Republican Laws, the Greek philosopher Plato thoroughly describes the intricacies and implications of these social divisions. By studying these two works, these dialogues, one can see that the contemporary world is still structured in this manner, although under different names and in veiled guises. Yes. Shows you what a traitor this Plato is, right? Because he didn't teach that to everybody. No, only the few that we would teach that to. Sources and bibliography, trivium, quadrivium, and then mystery schools. Reminds you of Bill Cooper. 1. The Trivium, a book by Sister Miriam Joseph, is an introduction to the 3 branches of the Trivium. Hold on, guys. Water is already boiling. I gotta get some coffee. Be right back. Here we go. Ta-da! Coffee! It's a really Dutch thing, isn't it? Coffee. We drink that stuff all day long. Yeah. Chapter 3 contains a cogent explanation of general grammar. And if you're gonna get that book, The Trivium, by Sister Miriam Joseph, you should start at chapter 3, right? Because that's the order in which you should get yourself acquainted with the Trivium. First grammar, then logic, and rhetoric as last. Her treatise on logic is the standard academic presentation, which contains many extraneous elements not suited to a philosophic layperson's comprehension of the subject. Interesting. Likewise, her treatment of composition or rhetoric is aimed at explaining the primacy of language rather than the primacy of reality as expressed in a statement of protocol derived from a statement of rationale. Interesting. Let me see what we get if we... do the Dutch in general look down on having books? No, Ben Jovi, they don't. In fact, my family, and then we're talking 2-3 generations ago, they actually had a name in this neighborhood because we were bookbinders. And we would get these very, very old books, also Bibles, and that were, falling apart. They would go to the bookbinder to repair. And so, books are don't have a bad reputation here. Okay, so let's see. Primacy of language. What the heck is that, right? Copy. See if we can get anything from Google. What you laughing about, Dan? Primacy of language. Yes. Dan is rolling on the floor. Merriam-Webster. No. Primacy of... Okay, let's see what we get here. This is from... something.eu, edu. Primacy of spoken language, it says here. Linguists hold that while many languages of the world are both written and spoken, more languages of the world are only spoken, and many languages of the world are spoken by more people than are written. Therefore, what is primary about language is that it is spoken. Written language is derived from spoken language, not vice versa. Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. We started speaking before we started making symbols on rocks and things like that for the things that we were talking about, right? Therefore, if we see a conflict between what is written and what is spoken, we will describe the language as actually being what is spoken. In fact, more discrepancies between one norm or another in prescriptive grammar are conflicts over whether to follow spoken usage or written usage. Written usage is usually the norm of a previous stage of the language. There's also kinds of grammar. There's prescriptive, descriptive, and transformational generative. What you know about grammar probably so far is based on what you have been taught in classes devoted to the study of your mother tongue, English, and in classes devoted to the study of the second language, such as French, Japanese, or German. Right? That's special grammar. We're not concerned with that. Most of us are taught our mother tongue from the point of view of prescriptive grammar, with perhaps a dash of descriptive. Okay. So, let's see. That was that. Do we have any more here on primacy of language? Let's see what this is. Primacy of language. Says here, is it too much to read? No. I don't know if this will help, but The Primacy of Language in Vico. I don't know what Vico is, by Michael Mooney. With the most agreeable tie of speech, reason bound together, men who had hitherto been solitary. That's from Cicero in the Republic. 323, I guess. Whom are we to believe? Arnold, who rejects the ars topica, or Cicero, who asserts that his own eloquence is due chiefly to the practice of this art? Vico's rhetorical query put some short way into his celebrated discourse on the ancients, and the moderns showed no particular boldness or courage. He was speaking, after all, in Naples, not Paris, and of his 28 colleagues there assembled for the commencement of academic year 1708 to 1709, fully 12, and they, the best paid and most prestigious, were from the faculty of law. Certainly, they were disposed to hear a rousing defense of the copious method of traditional rhetoric, a virtual adjunct to their own discipline, against the sterile practices of the Cartesians, then so fashionable to the north. And surely the younger of Vico's listeners, disproportionately law and pre-law students, were receptive to an apology for the kind of prudential flexibility and sharp-witted ingenuity. All right, so how does this explain anything about the primacy of language? Click that away. Jan-Peter de Ruiter, that will be Dutch again. On the Primacy of Language in Multimodal Communication by Jan-Peter de Ruiter. Max Planck Institute for Psycholinguistics, Nijmegen. That's very close to where I am. Abstract. In this paper I will argue that although the study of multimodal interaction offers exciting new prospects for human-computer interaction and human-human communication research, language is the primary form of communication even in multimodal system. Yeah, well, of course. I mean, a computer works on code. Code is a language, right? I will support this claim with theoretical and empirical arguments, mainly drawn from human-human communication research, and will discuss the implications for multimodal communication research on human-computer interaction. Alright, so this continues for a long time. I was just looking for a definition, more or less, about primacy of language. I don't really understand that. This is interesting, probably. I'm going to put this in the chat for people that want to read it later. That's an interesting one. Yeah, language is something you should be interested in. Yeah, JJ, I don't know where you got that information, but it's probably correct. It says here, till the end of the 17th century, the Dutch banned Jews. Well, I don't know if that's correct, but I believe you on your word. I know for a fact, however, that beyond that point, many, many Jews came to the Netherlands fleeing from other countries, where they were probably kicked out. Right? And so now you see that Amsterdam has a lot of Jewish stuff going on in it, like Jordan. There's a whole neighborhood there called Jordan. It's ridiculous, right? And Banjo, we stole the tulips from the Turks. Just a bit of information there. Alright, moving back to the PDF. 2. Introduction to Logic. A recorded lecture course given by Dr. Leonard Peikoff in the 1970s. Yeah, if you can get your hands on that, do listen to it, like 1 hour per week or so. I did it myself, and it gets pretty tough in the middle, 4, 5, 6. I mean, it was pretty hard to understand, also because the English words that I never heard before. But certainly 1, 2, and 3 are doable, even for people that have never done philosophy or logic. And so, yeah, do get this. Introduction to Logic, a recorded lecture course given by Leonard Peikoff, right? Leonard, Leonard, and then Peikoff is Peikoff. This is the most appropriate constructed exposition of the subject of logic to which a layperson can relate. Yeah, so what I said, right? By the way, this Leonard Peikoff is a student of Ayn Rand. He's an objectivist. It is presented in plain English and without superfluous content, which might detract from the real-world application of logic. This is the core of the trivium method. Regrettably, this is an expensive item selling at $355. No, it's not. You can get it for like $10 or so. Just Google it. It's pretty cheap. If finance is a problem, I suggest the formation of a study group to share expenses as well as being a source of diverse ideas and views. Review of this material over time is an important aspect in the study of logic, and this particular medium is ideal for that purpose. Upon finishing this series of talks, a return to Miriam Joseph's book, as well as those listed below, will generate supplemental insight which otherwise would not be apparent. This is a long lecture series which presentation should be spaced over several weeks. The exercise of taking notes during this lecture will help in maintaining focus. Yes. Alright, the online order for Ayn Rand bookstore, Peikoff lecture, that's where you get it pretty cheap. Like $9 or I believe. Ayn Rand bookstore, Peikoff lectures department. There's a search box in the Ayn Rand bookstore website, so you can get that. 3. Rhetoric, systematic wisdom. A. See appendix. Alright, so we may get to that. B. Classical Rhetoric with Aristotle by Martin Gothran. That's something you can get from the following. Allow. See if it works. Yeah. Copy that. Put that in the chat. So you can get, if you really want to do that, some more sources there. Secondary sources. 1. Teaching the Trivium, Christian Homeschooling in a Classical Style by Harvey and Laura Bludorn. Here's another one. 2. Well-Educated Mind by Suzanne Weiss Bauer. It sounds German. 3. Introduction to Logic, a book by Irvin M. Copey and Carl Cohen. Sounds Jewish. Books listed above are available from Amazon.com unless otherwise noted. Internet sources, The Lost Tools of Learning. Well, you can just Google that. 2. John Taylor Gatto is here named as an internet source. You can just Google that. Get a lot of information. There's also johntaylorgatto.com. Alright. You can do a YouTube search, John Taylor Gatto, the Elite Private Boarding Schools. This is the first of a 19-part series on education, including a segment on the Prussian school model, an underground history of education, and the politics of power. Next is Quadrivium. Let's see. I will remember Siggy. The Quadrivium, consisting of the 4 subjects which are integrated by number, has not been properly presented to the Western general public since the time of the so-called Age of Enlightenment in the 17th century. There is a series of very unique booklets published by Wooden Books in the United Kingdom which, in concert with using the internet for specific clarifications, explain the 4 subjects in the classical fashion. That's in the way that these subjects should be introduced. It says here, it starts with the Quadrivium, consisting of the 4 subjects which are integrated by number. What they mean with that is that it's math, that's the first one of the Quadrivium, which is number in itself. Right? Then geometry, it's the second one, which is number in space. Then music, the third one, which is again number in time. And then astronomy, which is again number in space and time. Alright? One must experience these books before an appreciation of their distinctive method of communication can be fathomed. All of the titles listed below are pertaining to the Quadrivium, as pertaining to the Quadrivium, are wooden booklets. One, mathematics. Number in itself exists outside of space and time. There's a book, Sacred Number, The Secret Qualities of Quantities by Miranda Lundy. B, Useful Mathematical and Physical Formula by Matthew Watkins. Now, I've told you this before, but I've listened to Manly P. Hall talk about number. Because there came a question from his audience about number. And the question, I believe the question went something like, could you explain the number 0 to 9, please? And he got all evasive when it came to 0. He didn't even want to talk about that. The Kabbalists, they don't work with 0. They say, well, 0 is nothing, doesn't exist, can't work with that, They start with 1. And so, but from what I remember, is that Manly P. Hall said that 1 is unity, and 2 is the first division. Now this is very religious-like. It reminds me of Shiva. He's a hermaphrodite who is 1 and became 2. Right? So there's the unity, then there's the first division into man and woman. Then 3, Manly continues, is the first number. So what's he saying there? That 0, 1, and 2 are actually not considered numbers. Now, how is that, right? Does that make any sense? So from what I remember, 4 is confinement, right? 4 is where you make a square to put cattle in. Right? No, I don't remember much of the rest. 5, I believe 5 was life. 6 I don't remember. 7 was law, I think. 8 I don't remember. And 9, he said, was 9 encompasses them all. Alright, 2, geometry, number and space. The Golden Section by Scott Olson. Yeah, I think Jan Irvin had an interview with Scott Olson. You should probably go listen to that if you're interested in this kind of stuff. He talks a lot about number also. Yeah, interesting. B, Sacred Geometry by Miranda Lundy. Alright, Sacred Geometry. Reminds you of Masons, right? Hello, Anon. How you doing? C, Platonic and Archimedean Solids by David Sutton. Yeah. D, Symmetry by David Wade. And then 4, QED by Burkhard Polster. 3, music, which is harmonic theory, number and time. A, the elements of music by Jason Martineau. And B, harmonograph by Anthony Ashton. 4, astronomy, cosmology, number in space and time. A Little Book of Coincidence in the Solar System by John Martineau. Yeah. What do you mean, a little book of coincidence? Oh, it just happens to be that way. It's just coincidence. Right? That when the moon passes in front of the sun, the discs appear to be exactly the same size. Oh, it's just coincidence. I don't buy that. There are too many of those coincidences for it to be really a coincidence. The whole existence of the universe supposedly is dependent on these what they call coincidences. I don't buy that. Not for 1 second. You know, the whole thing about the law of gravity, for instance. Well, if the scientists then say, well, if the matter hadn't formed in this specific way, and the chance of that was only like 1 in a billion, and it had to form in this and that way, and then we got the law of gravity, which made it possible for suns and all the other stars to come into existence, for molecules to come into existence. All right, I don't buy that. That's not coincidence. It sounds more like a elaborate a hoax, I would say, right? Like it can't be true, or like a plan, step-by-step plan of something that came into existence. All right. This is one of the reasons why I'm thinking that it's all fake, all of it. The whole universe. It doesn't exist. Because it's dependent on so many of these so-called coincidences. It doesn't work like that. Alright, but that is a contradiction in itself, though, to claim that, it's all illusionary. Because if you claim that it's all illusionary, then that means truth doesn't exist, which means you cannot make a statement that is absolutely true, which means you cannot claim that everything is an illusion. Right? It's a contradiction in itself. All of these booklets have been made available at Amazon.com or can be ordered directly from woodenbooks.com in the United Kingdom. There's books on mystery schools. Critical Path, a book by Buckminster Fuller. Yep. Grunge of Giants, also by Buckminster Fuller. His title can also be downloaded from... Alright, let's open that. Put that in the chat. 3. Kabbalah, the mystical heritage of the children of Abraham. What the heck? Search engine. Alright, this is a PDF search engine. So if you put Buckminster Fuller, Grunge of Giants, and Critical Path, those two, Critical Path and 2, Grunge of Giants in there, you should be able to download it. Right? PDF search engine link in the chat room. 3. Kabbalah, the mystical heritage of the children of Abraham. My God, it sounds sick. That may be just me. By Daniel Hale Feldman. The entire text, complete with illustration, can be found at workofthechariot.com. Pay particular attention to the concept of the small and vast face of God. It drips from your boxes, doesn't it? And the distinction between the perfect tree and the working tree. Both capitalized, perfect and working. Tree also capitalized. Yeah. There's a lot of mythological stories about trees, banyan tree, world tree. The Cipher of Genesis, the original code of Kabbalah by Carlo Saurus. A related material can be seen on eNet, that's probably internet, at whatever. If you want this PDF for all these sources, you can just contact me, solvinur2@yahoo.com, and I'll send you this PDF. That's SOLVIN from Neo, NUR. So SOLVINUR 2@yahoo.com, the number 2. Another source given here is The Secret Teachings of All Ages, a book by Manly P. Hall. Yeah, keep in mind that Manly P. Hall is a Mason, 32 or 33rd, I'm not sure. Can be found at sacredtexts.com. The Alchemist Kitchen, another small wooden book by Guy Ogilvy. Keep uppermost in mind, read this as an allegory, not literary. The Alchemist Kitchen. internet resources. 1, the tree of life. It says if, but it's probably supposed to mean of. The tree of life. At efdawn.com. ifdawn.com. He's 33rd, you say, Banjoy. Alright. Kabbalah, Tree of Life, at crystallinks.com, kabbalah.html. 3, YouTube, Thinking Aloud, the Sanskrit tradition. Right, Sanskrit is a language. A 3-part interview with Sanskrit scholar Dr. Dean Brown. That's interesting. Let's see if we can find that. Allow me to select. Come on. It doesn't do that. Yes, no. Come on. It won't do it. There we go. Copy this. Put that in the YouTube. Paste. Search. Enter. Look it up. Thinking Aloud. Full. 23 minutes only. That's not a lot. Is it? Plingy pling, niddy pling, plingity plong. I'm gonna check this out later. It's anything India I'm interested in. A 3-part interview with Dean Brown. Appendix. We're going on to the appendix. Rhetoric. Systematic wisdom. Persuasively expressing or using knowledge and understanding. Right? So now you see that the trivium is also one. And it's a trinity, so to speak. Right? Because rhetoric is persuasively expressing or using knowledge, which is grammar, and understanding, which goes under the heading of logic, right? So rhetoric contains them both. Definition of art: anything produced by the arm of man. Arm is being used metaphorically to reference etymology. Yes, it's etymologically sound to tie arm to art. This is, again, a broad definition which includes the concept of fine art. That is the most popular connotation of art. It can be either an idea having only mental existence or a physical artifact. Artifact, right? Produced by the arm of man from an idea. An unwritten poem passed on from one person to another is an example of the former. A novel, an opera, a sculpture, a space shuttle, or the protocols of medicine are examples of the latter. Systematic wisdom is not the art of persuasion and explanation itself, but the art of selecting the best means of persuasion and explanation from a set of known principles. Right? So, this is just me talking. I don't like this persuasion. You know, people should think for themselves. As a body of knowledge has been gathered and arranged, and an understandable summary or conclusion has been made from that arrangement, the choice of how to best communicate this information to others must be considered. And, in the process, the subject being examined usually comes into a still sharper focus to the author and the propositional argument. Right? What I remember, what I like most about this rhetoric is what John Taylor Gatto taught, is that if you've gone through the first two steps, you've gathered a body of knowledge, you've done your logic on it, on this body of knowledge, then you start writing it down and see if you can express what you think you've understood. Right? That's how John Taylor Gatto says, well, this is how I test if I understood it. Right? So that's how you should probably best use this rhetoric. It's kind of checking. At this point of clarity, the entire propositional argument can be called a statement of rationale. That is, the conclusion and, of equal importance, the thought processes behind that conclusion have been stated. In a modern context, what is often overlooked when considering the wisdom phase is that it can be more than a form of conceptual expression, of simply being the art of persuasion. In times past, civic matters were the major concerns, and the art of having others come to one's point of view was of paramount importance. Huh? Sounds like influencing people to get them to do what you wanted done, right? Today, due to its product of mental clarity, rhetoric can also be used to provide a physical outcome by deducing a statement of protocols. That's a set of instructions from the statement of rationale. Let's see. Statement of rationale. Let's see if we can define that any further. Probably should be able to get some more information on that. Definition. Statement of reasons is named here. Let's see. This is probably good. Rationale is defined as the reasoning behind a decision or something. Right? An example of rationale is a CEO's explanation of why business changes are being made. Rationale is a noun. The fundamental reasons or rational basis for something. 2. A statement, exposition or explanation of reasons or principles. Origin of rationale. Medieval Latin. Alright, it's way older than that, but alright. From classical Latin, noiter of rationalis. Then more, rationale, noun, the fundamental reason for something, the basis, the rationale for dropping the atomic bomb. Right. There was no reason, no good reason for that. Origin of rationale, late Latin, rationale, from noiter of Latin. I don't understand what this noiter is. Never seen that word before. From Latin rationalis. Ratio comes to mind. Alright. More rationale. Another noun. That's plural. 1. An explanation of the basis or fundamental reasons for something. 2. A justification or rationalization for something. Remember John Taylor Gatto and Justified Sinners? 3. A liturgical vestment worn by Christian bishops and various denominations. Oh, interesting. A Latin translation of the ancient Greek, no, can't read that, logion, for the Hebrew hoshan, by Saint Jerome, referring to the sacred breastplate worn by the high priest of the Israelites according to the book of Exodus. Yeah. Sentence examples. Matters of warrant and probable cause escaped his wife's rationale, replaced by her conscience, which stood firmly in charge. Over a supermodel was softened by the rationale that he would also innately recognize his intended mate, even if he didn't recognize her ability to help him control his power. What the heck is that about? Our studies provide a physiological rationale for the use of anti-cholinesterase in PPS for the symptom of fatigue. Alright, this doesn't help me at all. The stated rationale is to widen access, reduce brain drain. What the heck is that? Bolster research capabilities and maximize the competitiveness of the sector. Yeah, just when we were talking about the Prussian education system, right? Antibiotic rationale, a third generation what the heck is that? Cephalosporin has the required spectrum of activity against the majority of likely pathogens and is an appropriate initial choice. Yeah. Alright, that didn't help much, right? Yeah, given a definition of rationale, but not about statement of rationale. These other links, I mean. Nope. Not helping. Alright. We're almost at the end of this PDF. A physical result or a manufactured artifact. Manufactured, right? Manufactured. Sounds like man working in a factory, right? A physical result or a manufactured artifact can be actualized by proceeding from knowledge to understanding and on through the wisdom phase. Again, hey, degreaser, take care, buddy. Again, this is a broader view of rhetoric than the view proposed by the ancients. Which ancients? The element of systematic wisdom are the elements of systematic wisdom. The 5 stages, or what are called canons, of composition. 1. Invention. 2. Arrangement. 3. Style. 4. Memory. And 5. Delivery. Alright, so those are stages of composition when it comes to systematic wisdom. Next, the 3 types of discourse. deliberative, that's political. Judicial, that's brackets open, forensic. And ceremonial, what's that, brackets open, apodeictic. I don't know what that is. They are related to time, future, past, and present tense, respectively. Oh. So, future would be deliberative, past would be judicial, and ceremonial would be present? Alright, I'm sorry, I don't see those links, guys. The past and future belong to man. The eternally present now belongs to the gods. That's Aristotle speaking. Alright. You can throw that in the garbage bin as far as I'm concerned. It says here, past and future is also capitalized. Why? Why would you capitalize that? I mean, I think I can understand if you capitalize now, right? But past and future? The three appeals, rationale, emotional, and ethical, stated more succinctly in the classical terms. The rationale is the logos of the proposition or argument being presented. The emotional is the pathos of the audience. And the ethical is the ethos of the author or orator of the proposition. 4. Types of proof. Inartificial, which is external, objective evidence. Artificial is subjectively devised or invented by the author of the proof or argument. Right, so inartificial would be the sun rising, right? And artificial, subjectively devised or invented by the author of the proof of argument. Think of Newton and law of gravity. Yeah, he takes that from what he sees happening outside. He takes it from the inartificial. 5. The topics. Common topics, genus or kind. Comparison and consequence. Right, those are common topics. Wow. Special topics. The right and expedient, the just and unjust, praise and blame. Those are the topics. Whew. Topics of what exactly? Oration is next heading. Wisdom presented in formal speech. 6. So these topics, they apparently belong to the element of systematic wisdoms, are. Right? 5. The topics. 6. Arrangement. The 5 parts of classical oration. Introduction, exordium, statement of facts, confirmation, refutation, and conclusion. 7. Style. Diction, selection of most appropriate words. Sentences, length, type, and variety. Rhetorical figures, schemes and figures of speech or tropes. Skilled wisdom authors can use the discipline in 2 senses. In its most fundamental form, systematic wisdom is the art of efficiently passing thoughts from one person to others. In its most effective form, it is the art of passing validated thoughts from one person to others. Yeah. So it's okay to pass validated thoughts, right? But then you have validated them. And if you tell it to somebody else and somebody else takes you on your word, then he's committing appeal to authority. He should validate it for himself also, what he has been told. Right? Never take anything for granted, guys. Always check. The internet is a valuable adjunct to the concepts presented above. A simple word search on any of the technical terms listed should suffice to bring the proper clarification needed to implement a useful rhetorical dissertation. Yeah. Well, that is if it doesn't happen what happened to me last week when you type in rules for grammar, right? Rules for general grammar, you don't get much on an internet search. The best way to get some more information on that would probably to go into a library and see if there's any books on it. Or get to know titles of books that are about rules for general grammar. And then if the library doesn't have it, you can maybe order it. A summary of wisdom rhetoric is next. The work of wisdom is the cogently expressed communication of knowledge, spelled here with a capital K, and understanding, also with capital U. It leads to a higher levels of knowledge and understanding. And now it's spelled with small letters. Oh yay. And then it says, the knowing of knowledge and the understanding of understanding. Right. Now, what the heck is that? And it doesn't help here. The knowing is spelled with a small k, of knowledge with a capital K, and the understanding with a small u, of understanding with a capital U. Whew. No clue what to do with that, guys. The effect of wisdom is to demonstrate the usefulness of knowledge and understanding. That is, it is to display the insight, the thought processes, in an article of persuasion or in the formulation of an outcome. Through the skilled use of rhetoric, all planned human activity can be communicated and directed. This is a two-edged sword. Rhetoric/wisdom can be directed to beneficial or to malevolent goals. Yes. That's why I say, language is used to control us. Let us end by reviewing some of the personal benefits which are inherent in the trivium method. The following will be most efficiently and effectively realized by using the trivium to train the mind for critical and creative thinking. Alright, it's 58, guys. It means the outro is gonna kick in pretty soon. I would like to thank everybody in the chat room. Still a few people there. I haven't scared all of you away. Benjoy, Del, Hopper, Jules, Topknot, Decreaser, and One and On. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. I'll be back next week. Take care. See ya.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind